And with that, let me introduce the first speaker of the day. He is the CEO of Vendure, my co-founder. I don't know what he's going to talk about, but I have been told there will be memes. That's all I can say. So without further ado, please welcome David Höck.
Yeah, I'm voting for getting renamed from CEO to CMO, like Chief Meme Officer, because I think that's where I'm excelling a bit more. But yeah, I mean, you can read it here. That's the title of my talk today, Independence of Exponential Growth. And basically, it's not the title of my talk, it's basically the summary of all the decisions we made the last 8 to 12 months, I would say. And it basically boils down to what we've decided and what is really important to us, and that's independence. And my talk will be mostly about like the business and strategic side of Vendure. I mean, most of you are like developers or like agencies or whatever. So I think it's also quite important for you to understand how we think, what our values are, and where we see Vendure in like the next couple of years, and why we have decided on certain things, how we did, and also what we have communicated. And I think I want to give you a bit more insight into what we did. So yeah, we also cover a topic which is important for the developer itself. But yeah, don't expect any like live demos and stuff from me. I'm the wrong guy for that. You will get that today. So yeah, I want to jump back, like the first thing to do, I want to jump back to like last year, December, when we held our first in-person meetup. It was called Developer Day. It was basically an idea of mine and Michael, bring together people, and then we basically sat down and of course we prepared presentations for what we want to do the next 12 months, right? So I think that's always visionary mind of let's go to next 12 months, that's our plan. And we basically had a plan then, and the plan was really simple. Get a VC investment. First, of course, you need money. I mean, without money, you can't afford anything, right? Especially software engineers. Second task, when you get the money, hire people. Hire engineers, hire marketing, hire sales, whatever. And the third step, scale exponentially. I think that's what VCs are expecting of you. And yeah, the fourth was, in our mind, like taking over the e-commerce world and being the dominant framework for everything and everyone. And I mean, we already had a focus back then, but we were a bit naive, I would say, in retrospect, of course. I mean, back then we thought like we are the guys, like we're pulling this off, right? So yeah, we thought, we had our rose-colored glasses on, and we thought, we're gonna get this. Like VC investment. We had like a backlog of I think 80 VCs it was back then that have reached out to us over the last 2 years, and we thought, are we gonna write them an email? Like, we want X amount of money for these terms, and then they're gonna give it to us, right? That was our, or at least my belief. And who would have thought it? This doesn't happen. I mean, that was basically us, or me, envisioning myself getting this funding, right? So all this money flowing into the company, and yeah, we basically were really eager to get this VC investment. And I think it's important in retrospect to know why. Because of course we had a close look at our competition, like open source platforms, but also closed source platforms, software as a service platforms, the whole range. And everyone was announcing funding after funding after funding in the years 2022 and 2023. I mean, these were years where Series A or seed or everything was announced, and our competitors were basically pulling off. We saw all these companies getting millions and millions in the bank, hiring people, scaling, starting up, and we thought, that's the only way how we can compete with them. There's no way out. Like, we need a VC investment. And we also thought there are only positive things to it, right? because it's all these like these shiny announcements where they say, oh, we have partnered with XYZ VC and we got like 10 million and we're gonna kickstart our growth now and everything is great and there's no negative side about it. And that's how we saw it from the outside. But in retrospect, after speaking to so many VCs this year and to a lot of founders who were VC backed, I can say there are more negative sides to it than positive sides. And yeah, we didn't know that back then because we were just on the sidelines. We just saw it from the outside and we have never done any VC stuff before. I'm used to building from zero, to earning first 1,000 euros, then the first 10,000, then the first 100, and then the million, and so on. So for me, that was something I couldn't really relate. And like Michael also, he's a builder, he's a software engineer. He builds stuff from scratch, and he doesn't really care about like the money side of things. I mean, now he does, but because I drilled him to do that. But back then, he also couldn't relate to that, right? We are limiting ourselves in terms of how flexible we are in terms. And I think the most important one was our open source project stays in the center of our organization. That means everything we do commercially revolves around it and not replaces it. So basically, from a strategy point, we invest in the open source project first, and this open source project enables commercial products that are basically like planets going around it. So basically, our open source project is the sun, and our commercial products are the planets around it, right? That was our main belief, and we said that's really important because there are so many bad examples of open source projects that got funding, and then they suddenly turns into a weird open source thing. No, it's like open source, but yeah, when there are pull requests closed and suddenly you can find this code in the commercial version of it, it gets weird. And then there's the biggest problem is you're losing trust as a developer and you don't want to contribute to it. And that was something that we clearly don't want. The next thing was, and that was one of the biggest problems actually when speaking to VCs, I always said, we want to raise once, then we get profitable, and basically, if everything works well, we're going to pay you out basically after 2 or 3 years, and you're gone, and it's back to us. So basically, we're doing a first and last round. And the third thing was, we want to follow a buyer-based open core approach. That's a bit like a term that is saying a lot, but at the same time saying nothing. It basically, in product development, you need to decide what is important for a developer and what is important for an economic buyer, a CEO, a CTO, like an executive. And buyer-based open core approach basically means everything that is necessary for a developer to get from A to B comes in the open source for free, and everything that is important in executive to make it faster to go from A to B, that's commercial, right? Basically broken down. There's a lot more to it. It was basically formed by GitLab, by Sitsi Branji, the CEO of GitLab. He basically came up with the term, and we thought that's exactly what we want to do. That's great. We love that. Because people should pay to move faster, basically. But we don't want to limit any developer to do it themselves. Because why? And the last point, and the most important one, is we had a vision. I mean, Michael had a vision of the product, and like from a technical point of view, I had a vision from the company side of view. And we said, we don't want to bend our vision just to get money, right? There are limits. At a certain stage, we say, we're building this company for ourselves, not for investors. So why should we adopt the vision to the investor and not for ourselves? Because that could become a big problem after 2-3 years, going flat out, all in. You suddenly start to think, who am I doing that for? Like, am I doing that for myself or am I doing that for someone else? And these were the most important non-negotiables for us. That was basically graved in stone, and we started there. And after sitting down, having a lot of meetings, also with Max, of course, who was our sparring partner back then. These were the things that we discussed, and we felt it, like we were motivated. We were excited to do this. And we thought, we're going to pull this up now. Let's invest 3 months, get a lot of money, and then we hire people and get this rolling, right? And we felt pretty good. And then basically, I started talking with VCs. And at a certain stage, this was me. Because I almost freaked out. After the 100th call with an VC, I almost freaked out. I got questions like, your product is free. How do you want to earn money? So I couldn't really explain our product. I had to explain open source to them. Like they didn't get the idea. And what I had to understand was that VCs are not most VCs, not everyone, but most VCs are not experts in our field. They don't understand how the dynamics of open source work. They don't understand how developers work. They don't really know how organizations that are buying enterprise software that is open source, how these things work. They didn't get it. They thought, well, if you are selling to developers, they don't have a budget, they don't decide, so I think you're selling to the wrong guys. And I always told them, because I'm a software engineer myself, well, the really good developers, they have a very strong opinion, and they have something to say within the company. And if they think this product is great, and we can build this project 2 times, 3 times faster with Vendure, they're gonna tell the manager to use Vendure. And then they reach out to us to ask, do you guys have something for us that we can buy or that makes it easier for us? So, yeah, I always had the thought, or my opinion was, okay, these VCs, they're investing millions and millions into companies. I think they should know what they do, right? I mean, now 2 years later, it turns out most of them don't. And yeah, I was going crazy. And Michael and Max, they saw that, because of course I've spoken to them. I've gave them a report basically, or told them who I've spoken with, what the questions were. And we were sometimes sitting there and thinking, what the hell are we doing here? Like, we are wasting hours after hours after hours just speaking to them. And the next thing was, you really don't know where you're at, because they tell you, great product, great strategy, great everything. Yeah, we need another call. We need another call. So basically, this was me after 220 conversations and internal meetings. I was extremely confused. I really questioned, is our product any good? Like, is it so bad that they don't understand it? Am I so bad? Like, I got self-doubt basically, because I didn't really know if the product is the problem, or if I'm the problem, or if the whole e-commerce space is the problem, or if open source itself is like bad, and you can't do business in open source, right? So we had a lot of discussions internally. I honestly put everything in the room. I thought, should we go software as a service? Should we go closed source? Like classic, just selling licenses and maybe having a couple of components that are open source. And at the end, it turned out, no, that's not for us. Maybe getting millions in the bank is not so good. Maybe it comes at a cost. So that was the first time we really thought about it, was maybe there's a cost attached to getting money. And the cost is basically giving away a part of your identity as a company and also as a founder. And it was really a moment in this office. I think it was in May, beginning of May, I was like pitching Michael some ideas. Yeah, we need to do that. We need to transform our product. We need to like invest more resources into building commercial stuff, and we need to change how we do things. Otherwise, you don't get an investment. And then basically Michael said, yeah, maybe we shouldn't get one. Maybe we should stay bootstrapped. Maybe we should just do what we did the last 6 years, basically, and we just find a way of doing things differently and not getting any external money. And I think, in retrospect, this was the best decision ever. Of course, we don't have millions in the bank, but as I've said, the millions in the bank come with a cost and with a lot of pressures that we don't have right now, especially in these market environments right now. So this was, I would say this was an inflection point for us, because we switched our thinking. We have gone away with, we basically put away the strategy of getting money, hiring a lots of people, and then building something, because we weren't really sure. Should we build enterprise extensions? Should we build a platform as a service product? Should we build a software as a service product out of Vendure, like attached to the open source? We didn't really know what we should do. But for us, it was clear. With money, every problem could be solved, right? So, because I always had this saying in my mind: with a positive attitude and more money, every problem is fixable, which is maybe not true. So, yeah, the good thing was we recognized it early and we stopped it. So basically, I told everyone, you know what? We don't want your money. We're going bootstrap. And to be honest, I got some answers where I thought, huh? You guys, I wouldn't have worked anyway with you if I would have known how you really are. Like, I got answers of VCs that said, if you're going bootstrapped, all your competition, you will lose. There's no chance you can survive the next couple of years without getting any money. And you're doomed to lose, basically. And I thought it was great saying no, because if you have these people in your company as investors, as people with voting rights, people you have to work together, and they basically switch 180 degrees from saying, oh, you're the best to you're the worst, maybe that's not right. I mean, not everyone was like that. There were a lot of VCs that were great, but as I said, I had like at least contact with 150 VCs, and some of them were bad, and I would never recommend them. I don't want to say names on the live stream, but maybe after 2 or 3 Glühweins, I will tell them. So yeah, so basically, just to visualize it for you, how we saw our business model and how they saw it was, we said, okay, open source is in the center, and everything commercially revolves around it, right? As we said, it's like orbits that are going around the sun, or orbiting around the planets that are orbiting around the sun. And we have like different ideas for plugins. We could offer services. We could offer like the enterprise edition that we have right now, and many other things. And the VCs, most of the VCs, pushed us into a direction that said, look, all your focus goes into the commercial product. You just have 1 or 2 like guys that are covering like the issues in the Discord, like maybe 10 hours a week, and just use the open source as a lead generation like tool that you can use. Great idea, right? Just use it for marketing. Not use it as like your main product, just use it for marketing to attract people to work with the platform, and then get them as fast as possible into the commercial product. And yeah, that clearly didn't resonate with us. I mean, that was not the idea. That is completely different. And that was the first time I heard that open source is basically just top of the funnel marketing. And I thought, what? Have you guys ever coded like a single line? Do you guys really know what open source is about? I mean, open source is the backbone of our digital infrastructure worldwide. And that was basically the time where, yeah, we just saw Vendure is maybe not a VC case, because VCs also play with a certain like set of rules, right? So they are basically investing someone else, like it's not their own money they're investing. So they're getting some money from wealthy people or from companies or whatever. They're investing it. After 5 to 7 years, these companies need to exit. They need to IPO or need to be acquired. And that was the first wrong thought from us, because we at the beginning said, we are in for the long run. Like we want to do that like 10 years or maybe 15 or 20. So we don't want to exit after 5 years. That's not what we want to do. And that was basically a learning curve for us to really learn the mechanics of this investment game and how these companies are built, what the implied pressures are by getting this money. And we also saw it doesn't fit us, because like, Michael is already doing it 6 years, and I think he wants to do it another 6 at least. And I also want to do it for a long time, because we are not, in Germany, there are these companies called the German Mittelstand, right? Companies that are going for 100 years or maybe even longer. They have survived both world wars, maybe one, maybe both. They've survived every economic downturn over the past 70 years, and they're still going strong. They're still in the game. They're still like hidden champions. They're market leaders in their industry sometimes. And that was clearly resonating with us, like this idea of like having something that is built over generations and maybe passed on from Michael and myself to someone in the future. And it is there because e-commerce and digital platforms, or what we are doing, like a digital commerce platform, that's the backbone. That's a critical part of infrastructure, right? It's not something that you build and after 5 years you dump it somewhere and you say, it's not important for us where this thing ends. Like, for us it's important where this thing ends, because over the last years we saw how many great solutions were built on that, and how many companies actually were built on Vendure. I mean, that's crazy. People building companies or the whole digital infrastructure on Vendure. And we just didn't like the idea of saying goodbye to everything after 5 years and leaving everything behind. And I mean, in retrospect, I think it was very hard to learn. We had a lot of tough discussions internally, and at a certain point, I honestly thought about like quitting and saying, look, I got offers from other companies to acquire Vendure. I got basically offers from other companies that basically want to buy Vendure but dump it and just to get us to work on their product. And I honestly thought about doing that at a certain stage because I was so frustrated and I got so many negativity. But the great thing is we said no. And we said no with a reason, because we believe in Vendure. We really believe in our vision. And if it takes us 10 years to grow to a certain stage where we are happy, then it is like that. I mean, we are young. And if it's 10 years, it's 10 years. If it's 15, it's 15. If it's 5, it's 5. I mean, it's nice in any way, because the journey is the great thing, not the end result, right? Enjoy the journey and not like suffer for 10 years or 5 years just to be at a certain stage in these 5 years, right? And I mean, this was the most important learning. I think also from the open source point of view, I think this was very important because honestly, I think if we would have chosen to go down that VC path, Vendure wouldn't be 100% like it is right now. I honestly think Vendure would have become a more commercial product, and I think only certain bits and pieces of the platform would be open source at this point. And I think that wouldn't be great for anyone. So I think we would have killed our whole community with that. And that's clearly not the way we should go forward. So enough VC bashing and negativity and stuff. Now I want to tell you what the solution was and how we came up with that solution and how this solution should work, because I think that's also important for you guys to see we are really thinking about making this sustainable, because open source software, using open source is always a bet. You're betting on people to maintain that stuff, and doing business should not be putting bets on certain things, because that involves a lot of risk. And as a developer or as a manager or as a business owner, your job is to reduce the risk to the lowest point possible, right? And for us, it was clear the most important question needs to be answered. How should Vendure grow in the future? What's our model like? Like, where can we get revenue? Or how do we generate revenue? How can we employ people? Great software engineers that fit the culture, stuff like that, because that's important for us. We want to have a lean and mean team, right? And so we sat down, Max, Michael and I, and we discussed it. And at a certain point I said, look, I founded this agency 5 years ago. We were doing like digital commerce project with Vendure, but also with other systems. What if we just combine it and use parts of this revenue, or profits basically, to build Vendure, to stay independent, to don't have any external investors, And Vendure basically gives back a certain status to that company without disrupting the whole partner network, I would say. And that conversation took off, and we had more conversations and deeper conversations. And this was basically the road that we are going now. And that's how it happened that basically Vendure is not a standalone company anymore. It's basically part of Eleventic. And Eleventic is the company that I founded 5 years ago, who was named differently back then. It was called Arpin11. But we did a full rebranding, a renaming, because we entered a new era. Why? Because back then it was just led by me as a shareholder and as the CEO. And now Michael and Max are on board as CTO and respectively COO. And I gave away some shares because you need to have skin in the game to do things properly. You need to see a company as your own, to execute and to really push through tough times, right? That's important. And bootstrapping is tough because you're faced with certain situation where you have to pay a bill and you don't have the money for it. That happens maybe sometimes. That's just the truth. I mean, we can blush and say it's more beautiful than it is, but at the end it's that. And you need to have people that have a full commitment, right? And what does it mean now? Vendure is part of Eleventic. So basically, there was a trade going on. A lot of internals, but basically, Michael gave away some shares to Eleventic, and with that in return, he got shares from Eleventic, and he's now the CTO of Eleventic and Vendure. So he's leading the development team at Eleventic, and the development team, and the whole team at Eleventic is basically also building, maintaining, and pushing Vendure. And that's great, because suddenly we have almost 20 people in the future also working on Vendure. I mean, of course not 100%, because if we dedicate 100% of our resources, there's no revenue. Simple as that. But we basically decided, okay, instead of taking out our profits out of the company, we're going to invest some of them back into Vendure, and we are betting on Vendure. And that's our skin in the game. That's our commitment to the platform itself. So really simple said, Eleventic is selling these really large, really complex, enterprisey Vendure implementation projects that have a longer period of time. They're going over years, not just a couple months, but years with large companies. And also is doing some consulting, is generating revenues through that, is forwarding basically resources and money to Vendure, because without Eleventic, we couldn't have pulled this event off, because that costs a couple thousand euros. And Vendure basically positions Eleventic as a primary implementation partner for a certain target audience, not for everything. Eleventic has a very specific ICP. Basically, the bottom line is, Eleventic only builds projects for large companies in the B2B space, in manufacturing and wholesale. That's a small part of the whole pie, right? There are a lot of the other projects that are out there for agencies and for other businesses that are doing projects with Vendure. But we need that kind of status, of course, to sell these big Vendure projects, to first generate the revenue. And the other great thing is, the people that are working in these Vendure projects, on a daily basis, they are also improving the platform. So if they are building a feature that is clearly BS, they recognize that on Monday when the problems are on the table, and they see maybe we did a wrong decision. We need to, fix that and release a minor release, basically. So that's also the idea, to being at the forefront of implementation and to really see what works and what doesn't. And also to work with these big enterprises and to see what are the requirements, especially when it goes to production. There are so many things happening. One topic that all the time comes up is performance, caching, all these things into migrating data, all these things that are becoming important. And I think you need to do it yourself to improve your product. You cannot just best guess how it should be done. No, you need to do a first version, test it, see what the problems are, and go back to the table and improve it. And that over and over again, like an iterative process. And that's exactly what we are following now with Elementic and Vendure. And I think already the last 2 or 3 months, there were so many insights that Michael gained and also the team gained just from working on these projects that we have. Because the first time he really saw how is it to work with Vendure on that scale with a certain team size, with certain requirements. I mean, from before, he just heard it from the people who are building with it, but now he basically needs to fix the bugs himself sometimes, right? That's different, because when you guys are writing him, yeah, we've built this and with that problem, he could just answer and then, yeah, it's off the table. But here, the problem stays on his table and just goes away when it's solved, right? And I think that's also something that Michael will speak about, is like dog fooding and like eating your own food basically, and not just building something out of the blue, but really using the feedback from the real life, the real world experiences, and bring it back to the product. And I think that's where everyone benefits, because I think with the next couple of releases, 3.1, which is released today, I think, I saw it on the GitHub feed, 3.2, 3.3, and 4, a lot of great things will happen. So yeah, now on to some other challenges that we saw, and I want to jump back real quick, because I think you saw there's this enterprise edition and dual licensing topic on this slide. And yeah, this was a bit controversial, I would say, the last months, because we opted to go from MIT in version 2 to GPL in version 3, which is from very permissive to copyleft. So from a developer point of view, really bad, right? But I want to explain a bit why we did that, so that you get a better understanding. So the origin of everything was, we said, okay, we're going to bootstrap. So from my experience, from selling projects, from building a company I knew, I need at a certain point, I need to know which people are actually building stuff with Vendure. So I need to create an intent to reach out to us. I want to speak with them. And the problem with MIT is you can do basically everything without asking, right? MIT is really permissive, and it is great. For a lot of libraries, that's the right option. I mean, we took over the maintenance of TypeRM with Geo, and MIT is the perfect license for this kind of library. But when building enterprise software, at a certain point, you need to know who is building stuff with it. They need to reach out and say, look, we are building this and that, and then you can discuss with them. And maybe you can see, maybe there's an opportunity to give them something, to sell them something that provides a value to them, improves their life, makes their process faster, and in return, we generate revenue that we can basically pull back into development. And this was basically us with MIT. Like, we were dancing, we were having a good life, we were building Vendure, we were talking on Discord and stuff, but then like companies like Breitling were just standing on the sidelines and building with Vendure, and nobody really knew. Like, by accident, I went on the website in China from Breitling and saw this is built with Vendure. I looked at the console because someone sent me a direct message on Discord. I looked on the website and I saw, yeah, this is really making requests to Vendure, because I can see the request profile, GraphQL and stuff. And I saw, and then I asked Michael, did you know of that? And he said, no. No, I don't really know. And I said, what? Like, a global leading brand is using Vendure and we don't know of it? I mean, there's something clearly wrong. There's something clearly wrong. These guys are using that, and I don't want to sell them maybe something, but at least I want to speak to them, maybe use it for a case study or promote it or whatever, and maybe also just to see how they use the product and what their experience was, to use it as a feedback for product development. So the first challenge that we faced was the challenge of intent. We need to know who is building something with Vendure, how they are building it, what they are building, just details. And this was basically, this whole challenge of intent arose out of us feeling a bit like that. I mean, I think many of you know this, this chart, or this, like, not a chart, but at least it's a graphic showing how open source and modern digital infrastructure works, right? So we felt a bit like, okay, there are companies building software as a service products on top of Vendure, making great revenues. We saw other big companies using Vendure, doing really well, and we thought like this little piece down there that is not really recognized, no one really cares about it, unless maybe opening a GitHub issue when something didn't work. And yeah, that was leaving us in a bad state of mind, right? Because we thought, okay, we don't know who is building something with Vendure, and also, yeah, we're kind of left out because we are doing everything for free and others are making money of it, which is to a certain extent great, but then there are, at a certain point, there are expectations from the other side to us. When are you guys releasing the next version? When does this bug get fixed finally? So basically, they are pressuring us to do something for free, and in return they earn money. I think there's something broken. And I think that's a general problem in open source right now, the expectations. And I have another meme. I hope no software engineer in here or programmer is offended now. But I think that shows it really well. So classic red pill, blue pill situation. You can either pick demanding high salaries for programmers, which is totally fine, or never paying for enterprise software. And I would say Vendure is enterprise software, because I had agencies where I had a call with them, a meeting with them, and they said, what decision have you made, guys? You put like the multi-channel feature in the free open source version. Are you guys stupid? That's enterprise, you can sell it for a lot of money. And yeah, that was basically Michael deciding that for himself before my time, because he was just saying, okay, requirement here from the community, let's build it and release it. That was the strategy back then. Requirement or community wants it, build it, release it. So no product strategy, no commercial strategy in place, right? And yeah, programmers sometimes just want to have both. They want to use the best software for free, and they also want to get a lot of money, which is fine. I also want to get a lot of money, but that doesn't work out. I mean, as a business owner, I need to create revenues to pay my people, right? And I want to pay them well, absolutely fine, but I need to generate these revenues from. And as an open source project, open source company, that's kind of hard. So yeah, basically the question that we asked ourselves, or the challenge that we had was, we need to find a way that people start reaching out to us. I just want to have a contact form. People should fill it out and send it to me. I want to speak to them. And on the other hand, we don't want to limit the access to the project. We want to be still full 100% open source, OSI compliant. It needs to be a trusted license and a trusted open source project, and not some weird open source / source available thing that many companies are doing. So then Michael, Max, and I, we sat down. Of course, Michael had a lot of open source experience back then. He has a great network of people who are also experienced in that kind of stuff. And we discussed a lot of different variations with it. And basically, I just pinpointed Michael to PIMcore. I don't know who of you knows the system PIMcore. It's an open source PIM system. I've worked about 10 years. I'm working about 10 years now with PIMcore. They are also an Austrian company. They have their headquarters in Salzburg, just a couple 100 kilometers from here. And they basically became the role model for us, because they have enterprise clients, really great case studies. They have great case studies what has been built with PIMcore. They are fully open source, so every developer can work with it. I mean, they're based on Symfony, but it's PHP and JavaScript. I mean, that's an ideology question there. So basically, I said to Michael, look, these guys are doing everything we want to do, and this company is working. I mean, they have VC investment, but I know from their history, they bootstrapped a very long time, and it did work out. I mean, maybe we should take a closer look to what they are doing and what their secret sauce is. And then we saw maybe the solution is GPL. Maybe the solution is switching license, because a license could change the dynamics, how the product is used, or at least how the discovery and the consideration phase has been done in project, right? So why did we go for GPL, right? The first thing, it's OSI combined. So it's a fully trusted open source license, and there's no question about it. I mean, there are still some developers who are saying, GPL, I can't use GPL, and GPL infects my code base. Well, it's not. And it depends on your case. And if you use it the right way, it's no problem. You just need to be sure to read through the license itself, and maybe also the great article that was published by Michael on busting the myths around GPL. And also, we basically analyzed the projects that we know of, and we saw 95% of the projects are not really affected by GPL. So if they choose MIT or GPL, it doesn't make a difference for them. Most smaller online shops, smaller projects built by agencies for their clients, there are perfect exceptions for that in GPL license, and everything is covered very well in this license, how things have to be distributed in a certain way. So we saw, okay, that's the great thing. We still keep it open for everyone. Everyone can use it, but for a certain percentage of companies, mostly larger ones, it becomes a problem. And they have the money to pay for certain commercial licenses or commercial add-ons. And I think that's totally fine. Because if a company is doing hundreds of millions in revenue, I think giving back to a small open source project is okay. That's totally fine. I don't see anything bad with that. I mean, they are making millions and millions in profits every year, and I think paying a small license fee is not a problem then. So I think it's about fairness there, and I think that was basically my biggest pro point why we should choose GPL. And also, and that's for me important because I'm the guy who needs to build like sales and marketing, it creates a sales intent. It makes people go on our website, go to the contact form and reach out to us. And I honestly tell you, I think from the 17th of July, where we switched the license to now, I think we got at least 1,000 requests with our contact form. We got so many great discussions, so many great conversations with companies all around the globe, from the biggest oil-producing company in Argentina to some coffee shop in Australia. Everyone was in the inbox. And that was great. Because then we just saw, okay, these people are building with Vendure, and we started discussions with them because we saw, okay, what are they building, what are their needs, and so on. And that was basically, or that is part of the solution how we can bootstrap. And I think that's really, really important for you guys to understand. It's not that we want to like take something away from you developers, or we don't want to make your life harder. We also need to care about us, because otherwise it's not sustainable. Because otherwise, in 2 years, we say, look, it was fun, but now we're burned out. We don't want to work for free anymore. We just stop maintaining it. And to be honest, we saw that with TypeORM. One of the most used, I think, or the most used ORM in the TypeScript, JavaScript community. 2 million downloads a week, but he wasn't able to basically build a commercial system around it, and it was unmaintained for 6-7 years now. That's absolutely crazy, and we don't want that to happen to Vendure. I think it's fair to say, okay, 95% you can use it for free, 5% are paying for the usage of Vendure, and we can build something great that is sustainable. We don't need to become a 150, 200, 500 million company. That's not our expectations, but we at least want to build a great team that is maintaining Vendure, that is developing Vendure, and that is also caring about Vendure and caring about the community. And I think we're in the best way to do that right now. So the end result was we have a dual license between GPL and our Vendure commercial license. The Vendure commercial license basically includes a few terms in terms of what we count as an installation, and how that is defined, and also basically gives away the rights to commercially redistribute the software in certain scenarios and also whatnot. What we are clearly restricting is building something that is competing with Vendure. Because it's also not smart for us to give away something for a couple thousand euros a year, and then they're building a commercial version that is competing with us, maybe software as a service, and then they're doing millions of it. And to be honest, we had one case like that are doing exactly that. And then we're still, it's not a conflict that we have, but just want to get the facts right with them. So yeah, that's basically what we did. And I think to summarize, and then we're almost at the end now, and I don't want to bore you with this business BS, but I think it's important. We are still, what are the pros? We are still 100% independent from investors. We can take our own decisions. Nobody pressures us into becoming a platform as a service, a managed hosting solution, and then building a couple things within the core, which makes it impossible to self-host. That's not happening with us now. We are 100% open source. The open source project is in the center of our organization. Everything is going into the open source project at first, and we always decide if we are pulling something out of the open source. Not the other way around, not first into the commercial version and then we check and see, maybe we can put also something in the open source. No, it's always open source first and then we see what we can put into the commercial version. The platform development is not driven by real-world experience. I think that's a major plus point now. The team really sees what is going on out there and what the problems are with Vendure, and there are some. We need to be true to ourselves. Vendure is not perfect, but we are working to make it really better the next couple of months. And it is future-proof because it is backed by a solid, growing 7-figure business that is having the funds to also fund the development of Vendure. I think that's important because otherwise Vendure could be dead or unmaintained in a couple months or years. What the downside of it, of course, we're not going hockey stick. That's not happening with us. We also maybe don't have these great, shiny, fancy animated landing pages that where startups are spending half a million on their website. That's not happening with us. The website we have right now, I've built that myself without any design. So it was just straight out of my head, right? But I think it does its job. I mean, it could be better here and there. It is what it is. But at the end, I think what matters is the end product, like the core product. And I think that's where we found a good solution. So, of course, there's one negative side to it that could be seen as a negative thing is there's a difference in balance of power between other agencies in Eleventic. But we're working on a partner program right now. The partner agreement is currently in progress, where we are clearly defining and opening up and really being transparent on what projects go to Eleventic and what projects go to our partners. So we want to be 100% transparent there, because I think that's the most important part, right? It's not, nobody of you guys blame us for like getting projects to fund the development of Vendure. Where it gets a bit weird is when suddenly you have a lead and someone of us is calling this company and saying, look guys, you could also build it with us. We are the creators of Vendure. I think you're better off with us than choosing a third-party agency, right? That's not what's going to happen. And to be honest, I saw that out there in the market already. And a downside for developers, there's no extremely permissive license anymore. And I want to focus on the extremely there because it's really extremely permissive. And now at the end, because we also had this discussion with some of our community members, because I think it's important to tell you what is our focus in terms of companies and target audience. Because if you're building a product for everyone, no one is really happy, right? Because, yeah, it's mediocre at best. And we discussed, especially in our open source community team, we had a lot of discussions with a couple people where we discussed about dual licensing and how it is affecting smaller businesses and stuff. And I just want to get the facts straight now. What is our target audience and who are we focusing on? Who are we building the project for? And we are focusing on mid to large size enterprises with very specific e-commerce requirements. So selling t-shirts in 3 different sizes and 2 different colors, that's not the case we're building Vendure for, because you can opt for Shopify. You're better off there. Also, very important for us is, of course, demand for customization. Plus, our solution should be chosen by technical architects and developers. So with everything we do, we focus on the tech architects, the solution architects, and the developers as our primary target audience, and they should promote Vendure internally, also called champion selling. It should be developer friendly, of course. And also what we're focusing on, because there's this big split between cloud-hosted solutions and open source self-hosted solutions, right? We want to focus on companies who really want to take control of their digital stack and achieve a faster delivery through better development workflows. And I think that's really important, because that already implies that there are certain tech people in their organization, because otherwise they don't really benefit from the improved workflows. And I think that is really important. We are not focused on small businesses. We are not focused on 1, 2, 3 people businesses that are selling coffee somewhere. That's not our focus. You can use it for that. Of course, it's open source. You can use it for everything. But we are focused on these businesses that are doing 10, 20, up to maybe 100, 200 million in revenue with their digital platforms, or even more. That's our focus group, and that's what we're focusing on, because that's where the most advanced requirements come from, where we are really pushing the platform to its limits. So I want to end my talk now with saying we are staying really true to our core values, which is we are staying pragmatic. We're not reinventing the wheel. I always tell guys when I speak with them, we chose Nest.js because Nest.js is the best JavaScript framework, TypeScript framework out there. Why should I invent a new framework just for Vendure? You need to have to learn another framework again for Vendure. We just use what is best in the market, put that together, and create a good platform out of it, right? So always pragmatic decisions. Then developer experience focused, of course, that's really important. We want to make developers happy and fast, and just leave them in a happy state of mind. When they're going to work with Vendure, they should be happy because they can actually work on features and not on workarounds. We're staying 100% open source and battle tested. We are collaborating with large companies that having Vendure under a lot of traffic, a lot of load, in very complex infrastructures and stuff. And I think that's our purpose, basically, to build a platform that is built to power these crazily big and complex e-commerce projects. And I think that's it. Enough business stuff now. Now a lot of tech stuff is following, but I think it was important for me to to explain a bit more how we are progressing now, how this whole change of companies and connections works now, because it's important for us that the community trusts us and also believes that we are making decisions with thoughts behind it. And we always think about open source and community first, but at a certain point we are a bit selfish just to make it sustainable. Thank you, guys.